The Strangers Chapter 2 is out soon, guys. Actually, I guess it'll be out by the time this video is published. It's just not out at the time I'm recording. Aren't you excited? I'm excited. Chapter 1 was just so good. It's so good, in fact, that when I first reviewed it, the video title was just The Strangers Chapter 1 is Insufferable. And you know what? After revisiting it, I stand by that. Now, when Chapter 1 was coming out, they made sure to tell us over and over again that this was not going to be a remake of Brian Bertino's original and was genuinely something new, the start of a new, bold chapter, which was a complete and total lie. This movie is absolutely a remake of The Strangers, following pretty much every single beat from that movie, except lacking in the incredibly strong relationship development, effective scares, emotional tension, and the list goes on. At least they kept the annoying character decisions and just cranked them up to 11. That's something, I guess. Now, this new trilogy of Strangers films that we're currently working our way through was made in a pretty unusual way, where it was planned from the beginning to be a trilogy. Not only that, but they shot all 3 of these movies back to back in 2022, and the plan was that at least the first 2 would be coming out in 2024, with Chapter 3 likely aiming for early 2025-ish. You know, we're now in, September 2025, and we have not seen Chapter 2 yet. Chapter 1 comes out, basically gets universally dogged as one of the worst movies of the year, and then we hear nothing about where the other 2 movies are. Even by the time we reached the expected release window for Chapter 2, it was just radio silence on this for a while. And it turns out that after Chapter 1 was critically demolished, they went back for some reshoots. Chapter 2 is now actually coming out, and I'd assume they're still releasing Chapter 3 since it was filmed already. You wanna know what's great? Chapter 1 was liked by almost nobody. It has its fans, but on the whole, this felt like a time where the entire horror community was in agreement that the movie was about the laziest, dumbest thing you could have possibly imagined, and yet it still made almost $50 million worldwide, and was the biggest opening for a horror movie that year at the time it came out. That means that this distended testicle ornament made more money than Immaculate, In a Violent Nature, Cuckoo, and a bunch of other awesome smaller movies like Oddity. They marketed the ever-loving shit out of this thing, and they're doing the same for Chapter 2. This feels like the most product movie I've seen in a long time, and it's tragically seeming to work. I genuinely thought that revisiting the movie over a year later would probably have me being a little easier on it this time around. Like, I definitely wasn't expecting it to be great when it came out, but I don't know if anyone could have predicted how truly terrible it is, so I thought maybe some time and space would help heal wounds. No. The most intense emotions I had while watching the movie were just pure exasperation and the sudden craving for a burger when they were eating burgers in the movie, because my brother and I were reminded that joy still does exist in this world. And you want to know what? We paused the movie to go get burgers. And then I forgot to get my girlfriend one after she asked me to pick one up for her while I was out. Not only that, but the fucking movie also wouldn't even let us hold on to the one thing that it made us feel, because my brother and I both spilled our fucking burgers about 15 minutes apart because this movie can't fucking allow any sort of joy or happiness to exist in this world. It is an endless void of vapid nothingness that robbed me of all hope and love in my heart and made me forget to pick up my girlfriend's burger. Do you have any idea the consequences of something like that? Any idea? Fuck! On top of that, even my dogs were pissed off. One was just not having it, and the other looked thoroughly upset by the movie, so thanks for that. They watch movies with us all the time, and I've never seen them look like that before. Sorry. Let's talk about The Strangers Chapter 1 again.
Were you smoking?
You know, sometimes bad movies take a little while before you can realize that they're bad, but thankfully this one is perfectly honest about that from the moment it begins. On its face, this sequence of a businessman being chased through the woods by masked rascals may not be all that interesting or unique, but it's not outwardly stupid. At least until you realize that literally the only reason it's here is so that Maya can stumble on his body towards the end of the movie, and it serves literally no other purpose. That's not my issue though. After that, they throw some statistics out about violent crime, including how many have been committed since we started watching this off-gassing from a curdled dick of a movie. Imagine you got jumped, and your attack winds up being a part of a Strangers Chapter 1 statistic. That is the worst insult to injury I can possibly imagine. Also, they say this is one of the most brutal of those crimes. You made it up! This isn't even something based on a real story. The original was, but it was based on Brian Bertino almost getting robbed as a kid, not a violent crime. It's not like this is some gritty movie or anything, so why the hell are they even doing this? It feels like what an edgy 14-year-old would write to open their movie. Not a great first impression. I'm genuinely struggling to think about where I should actually start when it comes to this. I mean, there's so much bafflingly terrible shit here, but I guess let's start off with Ryan and Maya. They're celebrating their 5th anniversary together by going on a trip, and before my eyes start spinning around in my head, I want to at least mention that Madeline Petch and Froy Gutierrez are not the problems here. Gutierrez is pretty flat at points when it feels like he should be reacting more, but overall, I mean, they're fine. I actually think Petch does, like, the very best you possibly could with this material, but therein lies the problem. My dear, sweet God, the writing in this compacted fecal dessert is so bad! Even just through their introduction during the car ride, it is the most egregious, "Hello audience, we are dating" type dialogue that I can possibly imagine, and it never gets better than this.
Do you know what today is?
Today is the 3rd day of our 3-day road trip across the country.
Or our 5-year anniversary.
I think the only part of this script that I appreciated even slightly comes during the final scene of the film where they're killed and Ryan proposes to Maya. In a vacuum, it's a really sad moment where he's regretting not having done this yet and wants to hear her yes before they get killed, as they're both accepting at this point what's going to happen. The only issue is, I mean, you know, everything else about the movie that's holding back any investment in their relationship or their individual characters. Aside from that, it just feels like for every scene they chose the worst possible interaction. Speaking of which, that final scene look familiar to you? I mean, wow. It's almost like this is a remake of the first movie, and they were absolutely full of shit when they insisted over and over again that it wasn't. Like, truly, almost beat for beat. This is just a cheap recreation of stuff we've seen before. The only real change here is that they're establishing the surrounding area to try and, you know, set up some sense of mystery. You have that dude who was killed at the start, now there's missing persons posters up in the town, and some of the locals act kinda weird.
Hope you didn't have the turkey milk.
You did.
Like, this mechanic dude pulls a jump scare that quite literally feels like it's meant to be played for a joke, but this movie is so utterly humorless that it forces me to believe they actually thought this would be an effective scare, which is a far more terrifying idea than anything in the actual movie. It's never scary. Never once scary! The mystery with the locals isn't intriguing because there's absolutely nothing to it aside from the movie just going, ooh, a couple of times. And when you have someone like Richard Brake sitting there, you expect something. But no, he doesn't say a word at any point. It's fucking weird. I mean, obviously he's gonna play more of a role in the other movies, but like, they just don't do anything here. Now, in the past, I've talked lots about horror movies with questionable decision-making because I find it to be an interesting topic. Halloween Kills gets a lot of shit for the decision-making and logic, particularly with Mr. Tivoli and the hospital mob, but that, to me, actually makes sense. Yes, these people are dumb, but they're a mob. Most of the people in the mob never see Tivoli once. They only hear a couple of people yelling about Michael and get caught up in the fervor. The ones who did see him were already so fired up that it didn't matter who came in. The dude is wearing a Smith's Grove name. He was on the bus crash, and that's all it takes. So now that you all know I'm a complete moron and actually stand by justifying one of the most mocked elements in a slasher movie in the last decade, let me go on and say that The Strangers Chapter 1 has quite possibly the dumbest characters I've seen in a movie in recent memory, and also just the worst overall logic in its very essence. It feels like not a single person involved with this gave a pinch sprinkle of a fuck about making anything make sense, and in my opinion, in order for something to actually be scary, I need to be able to understand why the people involved behave the way they do. That doesn't mean they always need to make good decisions. I just need to understand why people make the bad decisions if that's how it goes. On that note, allow me to pose a what would you do scenario. Welcome to the Rocklin Graves Hypothetical Corner. Thank you for joining us once again. Thank you very much. So, contestant, you're at a little cottage getaway in the middle of the woods, a little ways off of town that was giving us some pretty creepy vibes. Your boyfriend fucked off to go get his inhaler, and some creepy bitch has been at your door asking a question solely for the sake of brand recognition.
Is Tamara here?
You hear that same spooky bitch singing lullabies outside of your window and wandering around the house. Do you A, lock the doors and windows, grab a weapon, and set yourself up in an advantageous spot in the house? B, stare at a wall? Or C, go outside, walk around the house where spooky bitch just was, return indoors, put on some music so you can't hear anything, and light up a joint so that you're no longer sober! If you chose C, then congratulations, you're dumb enough to make it into a Rennie Harlan Strangers film. If you chose B, at least you have some class, and if you chose A, you don't belong here. This is among the dumbest things I've ever seen in a slasher movie. Maya's not the only dumbass though, because Ryan seems to have a little trouble with object permanence. When he can see one of the strangers in front of them, we're all good to go. No need to worry, lads and lasses, this dude has shit under control. But if they're not within direct view of him for more than 3 seconds, he'll go to, all right, we're good to go now, almost immediately.
They're gone.
It's not even just the character decisions themselves that are horrid, it's literally the logic in the movie from moment to moment that makes less than 0 sense. The two worst examples for me are this one where Ryan gets back and Maya starts explaining what happened, and we have this scene of her showing him where she saw the spooky bitch standing, and then he's like, "Aw, nah, dude, you just saw this picture." And she's like, "Yeah, maybe you're right." Are you telling me that the protagonist of this movie that we're meant to care about is so fucking brain dead that she could possibly believe that the masked killer that she saw directly in front of her while shining a flashlight on was actually just her brain getting confused in the dark by a picture at the end of another fucking room? Is that what you're telling me? Even if we buy that for a second, that wasn't the only thing that happened. Like, why does she let her guard down after this? Other things happened! There are so many problems like this one, like how vehicles in the movie seemingly make no noise whatsoever, but a floorboard is as loud as when I saw the Night Rain trailer and thought it was a surprise second expansion for Elden Ring. When Ryan comes back after that stupid fucking encounter with Maya, you don't even hear a peep from his motorcycle, and then he slowly creeps through the house without saying a word and immediately goes to the door to the room where Maya is hiding so that they can pull the most obvious fake-out scare you can think of. It's so painfully contrived, but that's not where the contrivances end. Remember folks, no matter what they try to tell you, this is a remake, which means that at some point we need to have an innocent person show up and get shot because they're mistaken for being a stranger. My dudes? This is bad. When they get to the house, they find that the fridge isn't working, and so in the middle of the night, having only a 6-pack of beers and no food that needs to be refrigerated, and with the plan to leave first thing in the morning, Maya decides, well, we can't have that, and calls the fucking property owner to come and fix the fridge. He doesn't pick up the phone, obviously it's the middle of the night, but instead of calling her back, texting her, or anything like that, the dude decides to just show up with absolutely no notice to fix the fridge and winds up getting shot while trying to unlock the door. Couple things with this one. 1, what the fuck? 2, why did he not knock or say anything? It is the dead of night. Announce yourself. And 3, apparently this script doesn't even care about things it's already done holding any weight, because if you recall, there's a big fucking hole in the front door from where bruv axed through it trying to attack Maya. And here he is like, oh, let me get my key out. What the fuck? Did anyone care? For a movie that it was so adamant that it's its own thing, they really threw aside any sense of logic in order to lazily recreate everything the original did, but much, much worse. I mean, fuck it. At this point, they may as well just have the strangers be able to teleport. Speaking of which, the strangers can teleport. Fuck it. We're not talking like entering a room and then being gone a moment later. We're talking in one single shot, they'll be there, and then they'll be gone without making a sound. With that and the broken door, it seems like not only does Ryan struggle with object permanence, but so does the movie's very being. I mean, for fuck's sake, they can't even keep the amount of fog or the kind of trees consistent from shot to shot. Apparently, even ecological consistency is too much to ask for. I can think of one scene that's actually original here. Ryan and Maya are crawling under the house and, well, for some reason, there's a nail sticking perfectly upright down there and it goes through Maya's hand. So now they're trying to keep quiet while dealing with... no, wait a second. Oh, you motherfuckers. God, and it was actually set up there that there was a nail in that movie, which makes it feel less like it comes out of nowhere. It's almost like setup and payoff is good. Alright, so it's not actually an original idea, and it's not even an unoriginal idea played out in an original way, but it's still the best part of the movie. And so that must be why they spoiled it in a trailer and made it so that every time I see this scene, all I can think about is Killjoy Jake ranting about how mad this made him.
This was a waste of time, a waste of money. What the fuck happened?
The man took that sacrifice and warned me not to watch the trailer, so at least I got to see the movie fresh. Hey guys, don't put your best stuff in the trailer. Bad idea. I also can't tell you how much I wish she chose to weaponize this and instead of pulling it out, just started backhand slapping her way to victory. At least it would have added some degree of entertainment value. For another really wonderful piece of character behavior, right at the end of the movie, Ryan has a massive advantage over one of the strangers. I'll get to them in a moment. And this scene almost drove me to admitting myself into a psych ward. First of all, for the love of God, it drives me insane when people in movies will have a gun and be against someone who doesn't, and instead of actually using the range advantage, they decide to go right in grabbing range. So aside from getting right up close to her, he starts pulling the give me a reason shit, which, like, my dude, she's already given you a reason, like, plenty of reasons, actually. It's possible in a situation like this that someone would be hesitating because they've never heard anyone before and are trying to cross that mental barrier. Except this dude not only has shot someone before, but he in fact just did it. And it was a completely innocent guy, which he did with zero hesitation. So maybe there's a part of him that's like worried that this is another innocent person. Of course not. The mask, the weapon, the dancing, the laughing, these people have been attacking him for a while. And the movie actually shows that it does in fact remember things that happened earlier on when he mentions the whole shooting someone thing.
You know how they say that your first kill's the hardest? You're my second.
For any of you aspiring filmmakers out there who feel like your movie could never get made because, you know, maybe you think it's not good enough, remember that this line exists in a real movie. Someone thought that, wrote it in a script, sent that script off, people agreed to make the movie, the script was brought on a set, people set up lighting, cameras, costumes, makeup, did location scouting and all that jazz, and then a human being stood in front of a camera and delivered that line, which was captured by like with an SD card in it or whatever, however they're capturing it, and then went on to the editing room where it was kept in the movie, color graded, mixed, and then included in the final cut of a movie that was widely released in theaters. I believe in you. Overall, the whole goddamn movie feels like when ads start getting horror themed around Halloween. I was sitting there thinking that surely at any moment this was gonna happen. Has this ever happened to you? Now, none of this is to mention how gaudy the movie looks either. I mean, it really feels like they watched one video on YouTube about the teal and orange color palette and then just went full blast with it the entire time. The movie looks like a bunch of commercial photo shoots stitched together. It's not stylized in any particular way, but the nighttime scenes are the farthest thing from looking like actual night that you can imagine. It's so obvious that they have these huge floodlights and everything is just too glossy. It looks like shit. Oh, 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 the moon is green. And for God's sake, they couldn't even get the strangers themselves right. For some unknown reason, they decided to drop the blonde hair from Dollface, which makes it so that her and Pinup Girl basically blend together now. I'm assuming they decided to put beanies on Dollface and Pinup Girl because in the next 2 movies, we're going to learn the real identities of these people, and I'm also assuming that we've already met them back in town, so this was their attempt to try and maintain some sense of mystery so that it didn't become blatantly obvious who the strangers were. They clearly didn't consider how this would impact the distinctiveness of them, and on top of that, they don't use these characters in any defining ways that would help us tell them apart easier. They always felt distinct before, and now it just feels like the strangers blob. Also, I'm not going to talk too much about it here since we don't learn their identities in this movie, but who the fuck watched The Strangers and went, yeah, but you know what would be way creepier? If we unmasked them and learned who they really were. No, it was the lack of motivation and humanity that made them so goddamn scary before, and this trilogy is going to fuck all of that over. No new ideas here, just the same things we've seen before but done much worse, and a complete misunderstanding of what made the strangers work. Ending is the same shit too. They're tied up in the chairs, have their last moment, although we do learn that being knocked over in a chair is far more dramatic than being stabbed, so that's useful. Ryan dies when his chair falls over, but thankfully Maya just gets stabbed and she's, oh, no, not the, no, oh god, no. She's fine actually, because sequel. I just can't stop thinking about how effective that final scene in the original was. Like, it's fucking sickening. And this is such a cheap recreation of that with none of the impact. The movie comes to a close with the lamest sequel baiting you can possibly imagine. So after more than a year, I can safely say that this movie is just as bad as I remember it being. I was genuinely baffled leaving the theater, and I felt the same way upon rewatch. Alright, well, at least now it's time to get into spooky month mode. It's gonna be so much more fun from here on out. Thanks for watching through to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video enough that you want to see more, and if that's the case, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell because YouTube can sometimes suck at recommending channels. A huge thank you to my wonderful Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members who are a massive help in allowing me to continue committing as much time as I can to making these videos. If you want to gain access to things like behind the scenes material or gain early access to my videos, consider supporting me on either platform. As always, thank you for stopping by Rocklin Graves. I hope you've enjoyed your stay.